boys. I'm just glad the live stream is working. I feel like we went a week or two where you just
I know.
couldn't go. There were too many people at home on Zoom and Facebook. That
Yeah. Zoom stock's like up 1,000% and they don't know what to do.
Buy shares. Back.
All right.
Giddy up.
We're good to go. All right, here we go. Blue Collar Recruiting, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And we've got a really cool guest tonight. We get all these different things going on with sales, recruiting, and all these. So on the surface, Kate, I will say that when you talk about background checks, boy, it sounds really boring, but we got something that's really, really exciting because I'm going to introduce you to Kate Kearns, who is also got a deputy background, deputy sheriff background to her resume, and a little place around Los Angeles County, California.
I can't imagine that'd be interesting.
Oh, yeah. So with that said, she's obviously that's a ton of experience when you're talking about background checks, understanding the court system, and so on and so forth. And Kate's with universal background screening. And the way that Kate and I came together was through Career Plug.
Hold on. Before you get too far, where are the American flags behind you?
Dude, I had it on, and then all of a sudden it cut half of my head off. So here's what happened. You know, I took the day off today. I take like 4 days a month off, right?
Yeah. You mean 4 days every 2 years you take off?
Yeah, that's about it.
You take a day off.
So we go swimming. And so I had the beach one all set up. I'm on the beach, you know, I got a beer, I got this, I got the sun and all that. Whatever's, it's like you can, if my brain was there, you would see my brain. Like half of my head is cut off. I'm going like this.
It'd be interesting to see what's going on in there.
Yeah, I have no idea.
To get an inside look at that.
I have no idea. So I'm a little bit boring tonight, I guess. We'll fix that.
Literally the green screen. You're literally just going with straight green screen.
I'm so creative. I'm literally the blue screen, green screen, whatever screen. So Kate and I got together because the platform we use for our recruiting stuff is thankfully finally going to have a button you can push and run a background check and do some things like that. But real quickly, two things. One is the company that Kate works for, you've been there for how long now? 20 years? Or you've been in the...
I've been doing background screening for 20 years.
10 years there?
Yeah, about 10 years at Universal.
Okay. And then coupled with the deputy sheriff background and things like that, I mean, you're pretty on top of this. And then I know one of the things that impressed me about Universal was some of the awards you also have in that arena, in that space. And that, I mean, tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll start to get into this a little bit.
Sure. So Universal, the company itself, has been around for about 40 years. I'm proud to say this is like a crazy stat, but we haven't missed a hit yet any place that we've been asked to work, which, to search. So that's a big deal because that's a lot of time with human error in that being said. But what happened last year, we've been in the top group. We kind of have like the Oscars for background screening, and it's the HRO today. Yeah, it is. It's true. And they actually present live like the Oscars, for the best quality, and they do a background or a back count, down count kind of thing. Anyway, this year, we've been on the list for the last 10 years, but this year we hit #1 overall over all the other background screening firms, and we hit #1 for quality of service. That is huge because there are like 900 background screening firms, and this is at the enterprise level, which is at the larger background screening firms,
right?
Small ones. So yeah, we're really proud of that.
I mean, I'm picturing like everybody in ballroom gowns and stuff at a big award event like that.
Thank you for the trophy, and I can't tell you how much this means to me. I think that's awesome. I really do. That's huge. That is cool.
Yeah, really.
All right. So I've got a few questions for you. I'm going to have to, I'm not really well versed at background check and background screening things, but I am well versed on how I think they're misleading in some ways. And I think there's problems in some ways in our industry to figure some things out. But one of the things we're going to ask Kate tonight, though, is I'm going to have her tell a few gory stories or funny stories. And I hope you've gotten a couple for us, because about something, whether it's in the background check thing where an employee did something crazy, or whether it's when you were with the sheriff's department, whatever. But we're going to get to that in about a minute. Let me ask you this. What are the top 4 or 5 things that a small service business owner must include in their employee screening to protect themselves? Talk sort of a high level on that. What is it? Because when you and I were talking, our background checks were this, and you said, that's great. So you'll probably have a lot of problems if you don't do this.
Sure. So I think the biggest thing with background screening is most people don't understand how it all works. So what happens is, you go online and if you've ever just taken the internet and plugged in somebody's name, that pop-up will come up, find out anything about anybody for like 1995. But the problem with that is that if you look at the fine print, it says not for employment purposes.
Right.
So what happens is criminal history is located at each individual county, and they don't share information. So in order to get the information, you actually have to go into those counties, and about 30% of the counties, they don't report to any kind of a database at all. So the first thing that everybody has to do is a social security trace. And what that's going to do is
what was that? Social security?
A social security trace.
Trace. Okay.
And that is with credit header information. And we're looking for 2 things: where the person's lived, so we know which counties to go to, and what names they've used in conjunction with that social security number. So that's first thing. Second thing then is to go into those counties. So at the very, very least, you need to do a county search of all the counties that show up on that social security trace.
Yeah.
So now can I, because you're starting to get deep here, and I'm already like, wait, is this something I'm supposed to be doing? Or is this something I need to hire somebody else to do for me because they're going to do it better, do it faster, do it more complete? Who's the best person to be doing that social security trace and make sure that it gets done right?
Yes, that would be done through your background screening firm. And the reason,
because for a second I was like, oh, I was supposed to be doing that. Sean, I got to rerun your background check one more time.
No, don't do that. Let Kate do it. Kate, we'll talk after this.
Sounds good. No, so when I say you need to do it, that means that you need to do that through a company. And thank you for clearing that up there. Because most people don't have access to those kind of records anyway, just even to get the social security trace. But once you get those addresses, then you go into the court addresses, to do the searches. But the question comes up, well, what happens if somebody commits a crime someplace where they didn't use their social security number? So what you can do is expand the search by doing, some states have a statewide, which is the first attempt to get all the information at the same place, same time. However, they're not always known to be the most complete because they're dependent on the counties to report up to the state. This is sounding kind of getting involved, but it's just to understand that with today's technology, you would think, if you've ever watched NCIC, you know that they do facial recognition in 30 seconds.
How about Criminal Minds? I love Criminal Minds.
Criminal Minds. You get everything done in 30 seconds or less, but the technology is there, but it's not been implemented. So
I've got 2 quick questions. One is, when you talk about counties, is it in a specific search would be per county, like you say? Is that just in the county where the person lives or where the company is, or is it wherever that social security number's been in any county and across the country?
Right. You would want to do the counties that the applicant has been in. So at a very minimum, the counties that show up on the social security trace, those are the ones that you're going to want to go to, because applicants kind of forget where they've lived if they've had a problem there. So they don't always hit the application,
Yeah, so they do.
Right.
What was I telling you that I used to run and compared to what you suggested?
Right. You were running just a database search. There's a major database out there. Everybody kind of uses the same one, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's privately owned. You'll hear it called the National Criminal Database Search. We call it the USA Crim Search. I mean, it's amazing in that it will expand your dive. Let's, because basically background screening is how deep of a dive do you want to do. So we always recommend Social Security trace, counties at a minimum. But what happens is, because the name is national, a lot of times people, not knowing, think that they're getting the entire nation. And again, about 35, somewhere around there, 30 to 35% of the courts don't report to any database. So this national USA Crim, they call it security scan. Everybody calls it something different, but the bottom line is it's the database that Uber seemed to be using when they got into trouble. And what happened was, and I felt bad. In the newspaper, it said they had a problem, a Kalamazoo shooting that involved one of their drivers.
This is Uber?
Uber.
Yeah, okay.
And they had mentioned that they do the gold standard of background screening. They search.
Geez.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a setup to chop your head off.
And it was actually in the newspaper, and they said, we search the entire nation and we go to the courts. And I just read that and I thought, oh, they don't know. So it was bad, because this database that everybody uses to expand searches, and that's the way it should be used. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and that's the federal law that governs us, we can only report up-to-date and accurate information. So if we get a hit in that database, we then have to research and verify the information. So when Uber said they went to the courts, they only went to the courts for hits that showed up on that database, but they were missing a third of the nation. Right? So yeah, their first settlement was $10 million.
Oh.
Yeah.
What actually happened? I mean, I've heard some nightmare stories with Uber as it is with it's almost like that old Craigslist murderer, that they made a movie out of and all that. It's a nightmare, I hear somebody, and I know this probably isn't going to go over well with everybody, but I've had like a female relative of mine say, yeah, I think I'm going to be an Uber driver. And I go, yeah, that sounds like, are you going to go downtown Cleveland and get a bunch of dudes from the casino and see what happens maybe? Or what card are you playing with this? Are you crazy? I wouldn't haul Amish if I didn't run a background check on some things, I mean, it's just crazy.
It's kind of funny because I am a licensed private investigator, and I get calls from time to time, not using obviously Universal, but I do get calls from time to time from people who want to check out who they met online,
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's some stories behind those too, but
nice.
Yeah, it's a whole different situation, but yeah, it's pretty crazy when you talk about finding out.
Yeah,
bad people don't look like bad people.
I want to throw one question in to dive a little bit deeper, like just pure curiosity. This is probably even not that useful, but I can't not ask it because I'm just so damn curious.
I'd like to ask a non-useful question.
I'd like to ask a really useless question. This is super normal for me, by the way. I just ask a lot of useless questions, but every once in a while there's a good one in there. So when you do that Social Security search, and then you've got all the different counties that somebody has lived. Now, if you run that and focus on that, are you only going to find crimes or mishaps that they have in those counties, or if they got something else in a different county, even though they were living here, like does it go back to where they were living even if the crime was committed somewhere else? How does that work?
Only if they use their Social Security number in that county would we go search that county. And where people make mistakes is, to be quite honest, some firms will only go back the previous 3 counties. But if that crime is set in that 4th county and you're not searching them all, you're really setting yourself up for risk. But that's when exactly what you're asking about, well, what if it's an adjacent county and we don't search that one? Will it show up? The answer is no. They all maintain their own records. So that's why you do.
It's not about where the crime was committed necessarily. It's about where they called home.
It's where the crime was committed.
Okay.
But for instance, Texas is 242 counties. So you can't go into every county. So what you do is run the social security trace, find out where the person's lived, search those counties at a bare minimum, because it comes down to risk management. You know, when you start talking about how deep of a dive do you want to do, and especially when it comes to safety sensitive positions. And quite frankly, home services is hugely safety sensitive because generally speaking, your number one client is female home alone, you know? So it is a very sensitive arena, but that's when you expand it using the database searches.
Yep. So one of the things I want to just kind of throw in here too is that we're going to end up talking about, I want to know a little bit more about some marijuana laws and drug screening eventually here. Not quite yet. And then I want to know a little bit about, this surprised me when I found this out a couple of years back, that in a lot of states, it's illegal to use the word background checks and job descriptions and things like that until you get to a certain point, but it's state by state. So there's all these things that are intertwined and that you just don't, you can't just post a job anymore and say everything's great. You can't just run the cheapest background check company that you can find. I mean, unless you're okay with sending somebody into a home and hoping for the best. I mean, and then, so I think let's do this. I want to hear some of the stories that I've heard a few things about, and let me give an example of one of the things I heard from a client of mine years ago from another company. Now, it wasn't ours, that she was like, I need to know that you do this and do that, and you're bound and you got this background check and this and that. And what had happened was it wasn't our employee. It was the employee's boyfriend. Okay. Our employee ended up, not our employee, but the other company. Apparently, whoever she had working for her before us had given the key to the boyfriend, or the boyfriend, or maybe the boyfriend was, they were at the house and watching TV or something, and he started questioning about the key. Hey, can't we get, and then it was like, can we get into that house and this and that? So that's sort of one thing. That's a scenario where there's a lot of things I want to ask too, Kate, about the misleading of I think some of the reporting. And I'm not sure where to start. So let's start with some of the stories, because I think that'll set up a couple things to cover after that.
Sure. Okay. So just really quick, because just in case anybody's doing the math here, because I've been doing background screening for 20 years and I've been in law enforcement for 15 years, and we weren't doing those two at the same time. Disclaimer, I did turn 21 in the academy. Just want to say. Okay. So that's a start.
Timeline going here.
Okay. But I will tell you, it's so interesting how your life takes a path. So I'm going to start first with me, because it's kind of one of the things why background screening is near and dear to my heart. I was 21 in the academy. I was on probation, and I was working in courts. And we had a judge who literally, if the attorney was late to her court, would put them in lockup. She would lock them up for lunch, like timeout. It was very interesting.
Say that again. Wait a minute. What?
Seriously, we had a judge who would remand the attorney to jail in our lockup for his lunch hour if he was late to her court. Yeah. True. Absolutely true.
Oh my God. That's a little arrogant. Go ahead.
But anyway, that being said, judges can do what they want. So we had, obviously, we're not going to put them in general population. So we had a special booth that was half concrete and half glass. And our keepaways are, special people. And then the attorneys, we would put them in up, one at a time in these special booths. So I was not married at the time. And there was this gentleman in that booth who I, honest to goodness, remember to this day. It was like a blonde Superman, seriously. He was 6'4", sky blue suit, dark Corman glasses. I mean, blonde hair, blue eyes, strong jaw, everything. I'm like, what attorney is that? And the guy said, not attorney. I'm like, darn it, white collar crime. And they said, nope. I said, what do you do? He said, well, actually, Kate, he is a serial killer. He would pick up women at high-end bars, decapitate them, freeze their heads, and his girlfriend would videotape what he did with them later. I would have went out with this guy in a heartbeat. in a heartbeat. And therein, lost my innocence. It was like, oh my God, never again will I ever go with
That
anybody like
close.
who they are. And yeah, and it was really my thing.
Wow.
Bad people don't look like bad people, you know?
Ted
So
Bundy. Ted Bundy's a perfect example of that.
absolutely, absolutely.
Handsome guy. Everybody. He was in politics and all these things. I mean, I've done a lot of reading on Ted Bundy.
Yep. Yep. I've actually used him in some of my, I've done some classes on the
That's
side and
crazy.
an example. Yeah, crazy. So anyway, so that's background screening and why it's personal to me.
I'm sure.
Fast forward, home services. So I actually, believe it or not, was talking to someone who is in home service. Obviously, I'm not going to mention any names here, but they were calling because one of their franchisees, it was a franchisor, one of the franchisees, hired somebody and they weren't doing background checks. And the person went in to install some kitchen cabinets. And the woman said, how much is this going to cost? And he said, oh, we'll take care of it later. You know, so she said, okay. So he does the work. And she went in to get her wallet. And when she came back, he had disrobed because that's what he was going to take for payment. And she's like, no, you know, unfortunately, he didn't attack her. She was able to get out of the house, you know, but there was no screen done on him. And it, just so you know, there are about 240 million registered sex offenders in the United States. It's
Yeah.
crazy, right?
You can go on the sheriff's website, at least in Ohio, and go to any county, and it's mind-boggling. I mean, and so once I did that one time, I'm going like, all right, my buddy lives here, my brother lives here, and I'm going, and I'm on the phone, dude, you got like 5 sex offenders, like right down the road from you. And it's crazy.
It is crazy.
So I have a question, then there's a couple funny comments that I want to hit up from the comment stream on Facebook.
Okay.
So one question though is like, if somebody did hire somebody and didn't run a background check, is there any legal repercussions to run it after the fact and be like, oh, just kidding, never mind, you're fired? Or is it like too late and now they're legally protected? What do you do if you screwed that up and you have somebody and you're like, or maybe you ran a background check and then you just listen to Kate say you missed 30% of the checking, and then you like run more and find out more. Can you take action based on that, or are you too late and you have to fire them for something else or cause somehow?
Well, first and foremost, you're going to want to talk to your legal about it because they'll know what documents you have and what makes sense for what you've done. But if you're implementing a background screening program, the biggest thing is about not being discriminatory, meaning that you want whatever the job position is, you want to run everybody in that job position the same way. Now you can run them at different levels if they're at different jobs, but you wouldn't want to say, I've had people say, you know, I kind of had a hunch about this guy. So we decided to run, 3 extra kinds of searches on him than the other guy. Because the crazy thing is if you find something, you can still get sued. Because why did you search me differently than someone else? So it's very dangerous. You just want to make sure you're consistent in that regard. And if you find out, if you're implementing a new program, I would say to go back and search somebody after the fact. I don't know that that would protect you because you didn't do it before. Again, you'd want to talk to your legal, but you could say, you know what? We haven't been doing background screening. We're now going to implement a background screening plan, and here's what we're going to do. Or we've done background screening. We've only done a type surface screen. We decided we're going to do a deeper dive. So effective on this date, everybody's going to be screened. And I'll tell you, it was really interesting. I had a hospital back in the day that wasn't screening. Now most states require that. But they called and they said, we're getting bigger. We kind of used to know who we were hiring. Now we're not so sure. So we're going to screening. And so with new hires. Okay. So the first screen came back as a registered sex offender. So I was sure they were testing me, like, are you going to really find us? Right. So I called them up and said, hey, was that a test? Because we got them. And they said, no. I said, no. And they said, Kate, we would hired that guy. He was perfect. Oh my gosh. So after a couple of those, they decided to screen their existing employees. They had, oh gosh, I think they said almost 40 people didn't come to work when they said they were going to screen. and they
Well,
found,
then it's kind of mission accomplished in a way, right there.
yeah,
Oh,
what you
Make
think?
man.
sure you've got a good pipeline of applicants set up before you tell all your employees you're going to
That-
rescreen them.
Kate, that's the ABCs of recruiting. Always be recruiting.
Exactly. And then of the ones that did show up, they had 18 people who had offenses that they caught. I mean, we did the background and they had background checks. They thought we were going to catch it. We found it. So post offense, you want to make sure that you just need to be screening. It just
You got other comments, Dan?
Yeah. So Rob said we search our state public case search. We learned earlier this year that searching other states were needed. Guy with a very violent and volatile past and a felony got hired. He ended up volunteering that info to me during our drive from the job. His behavior over 3 days of employment made it super clear he had not learned or grown from that. And then Bobby Walker chimed in and said, my mother-in-law has a lot in common with Ted Bundy, minus his good characteristics.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy. Well, listen, just as they brought up statewide, just so you know, there are 7 states that don't even have a statewide. So you can't say do a statewide instead, California being one of them, but there are 7 different states that do not have a statewide search available.
Here's something that is sort of like real life with services. And I know a couple of the things with me, and I kept kind of setting the table where I think it's misleading.
Mm-hmm.
It's data, and data can be misleading. And so there's 2 things I think that are misleading about running a background check and thinking that is accurate. One is, I'm sold on the fact, and absolutely prove me wrong, because whatever you tell me, I'll believe as with your experience as a sheriff and in the courthouse and all that. Is it true or not that when I see somebody with a misdemeanor, there's a really good chance that was a felony, probably should have been on the report as a felony, but lawyer and judge got together and said, okay, let's finagle this a little bit and do a little bit of probation, do a little bit of that. And, you kind of maybe molested somebody or you didn't, but it's now a misdemeanor that said, oh, it was just, this. The sex offender thing is one thing. Drugs is a big thing and another thing. In our line of work, theft is huge. That's one of those things you just, violent crime is certainly, big and probably the biggest, but theft, that misdemeanor, oh, no, it wasn't that, or it goes away. So that's one. If you can address that.
Yeah, let's hit that one.
Yeah.
Before you go to the next one,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of meat on that bone.
You better believe it.
Okay, so yes, as a deputy, when you're out in the field, you're gonna look for the elements of the crime, but if you're always gonna book for the felony if you can, and let them work it out in court. So you always go for the highest
Sure.
crime, and then the attorneys will get together and figure out what they have. And yes, there is a lot of plea bargains that go out. So it is true, a lot of felonies do get dropped down for a multitude of reasons.
I know mine did.
Yeah,
I mean, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. But here's the deal. So the EEOC, they have a very specific, and you can go online and search EEOC background screening guidelines. Okay, they came up with very specific scenarios of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. You can't say, if you've ever been convicted of a felony, we can't hire you. You can't do that, because each case has to be looked at individually and you have to decide then. But if you're in a place that has where theft is extremely detrimental to your business, maybe you would talk to your attorney, of course, first, but maybe that is any conviction at any level for theft is a disqualifier, because you'll have access to people's personal belongings and it could have a negative impact on their company. So that's what you have to look at things. So in the EEOC, I have to tell you, there are cases that make sense. I mean, just because you've been convicted doesn't mean you can never work again in your life.
Right.
I mean, there's got to be some guidelines there.
Sure.
So you take the 18-year-old woman who stole food for her baby, single mom. Okay, that's petty theft, and she stole food. And you're not going to say that you can never ever work again, but I'm not exactly sure that I would give her my cash box, right? Or put in a place where she steals. Okay, you can work, but you need to be someplace where you're not handling money. So whether it's administrative work or engineering, drawing thing, whatever, but that's what you have to look at. So if does that help answer your question? Does that make sense?
I'm still gray with it, and I think it is gray though. I think it is going to be gray, isn't it? It's not black and white.
In what regard? Not
I,
hiring,
I,
not hiring.
well, I think you said something to the effect of if somebody's handling cash, you definitely, that's probably not a good position for them. But somebody going to clean a home inside of a home isn't necessarily there to handle cash, but they could be stealing cash.
They'll handle it if they want to.
Yes, yes. So I'm a little gray on that. I'm a
Okay.
lot gray on that.
So let me clarify this. You would definitely run it by your attorney. However, if theft, anybody who steals is a risk to your company, then not the fact whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony would be the determining factor. What was the elements of the crime? What happened? How long ago was it? You have to look at all those things, but based on that information, not hiring somebody who has a conviction of robbery or petty theft, they may not be a good candidate for your job. That might be a disqualifier. Right. See, it's not necessarily cash, it's just the fact of stealing.
Yeah.
But you have to take in consideration different things. But
so let me go back to the my original question, Kate, which was, and by the way, you're super helpful, Billy. I mean, you really are. So if I'm looking at a background check, that's almost something that's kind of something to decipher a little bit too. And we can talk about that. But if I go back and I say, okay, I don't know that you really can tell if something's a misdemeanor or plea bargain down. I don't know. So you have to just go. You don't know that, so you have to go with the data that you have. I'm assuming that's what you're saying. How else could you do that? So I get that. Now my next question is, and this is the one where it drives me absolutely flipping bonkers. And I've had it in my own companies, and we've had it at Blue Skies. And I would imagine anybody on here probably has had this. If you've been in business long enough, you're going to have this happen to you in our services, especially home cleaning inside of the home. I had a guy that was a dentist. He thought he was a brain surgeon or God. He's a dentist. Nothing against dentists, but you're not saving lives, okay? I swear to hand to God, this guy would call the office every 2 to 3 months. They stole something. They stole this. They stole that. Okay. Without exception, this happened for years. Without exception, not him, not the ass, but his wife would call and apologize and say, "We found it. We got it. We hit this, that, and the other." To eventually where I said, "Hey, Brad, I'm not going to say your last name and where the hell you work. If you call me again that we stole something, I'll take the call one time and I'm going to tell you to go to hell." Okay? The next phone call, I'm not taking. If you want to go find another service, go and do that. And he didn't. With that said, though, I've also had things that were like, Sean, I've been with you for 10 years. There literally was nobody else in the house. They don't have kids because that's a big one, right? The kids do all kinds of things. No kids. Nobody's been in the house but your girls yesterday. Either the ring's gone or what. And they're like, there's no doubt in my mind. And I believe that person. You go through the routines that we go through, which is you question. We do a polygraph. We do. I have yet to see, and Dan, I might be wrong with this, I don't know, but I've not with my company before I got with Blue Skies. I've yet to see a home clean, and I haven't heard a story of, and I know a lot of people. I've yet to see somebody that said, "Yep, the police came, We did this, we did that, and without a doubt, we convicted them. What is, I mean, that's how, so again, that's not necessarily, that's a problem, but regarding the background checks of that, how many people do we hire that were accused of stealing somewhere else that have been in the house cleaning business for 10 or 12 years and nothing's going to show up on their record because of what I just outlined?
You know, it's true. There are people who commit crimes who haven't been caught or there isn't a background on it. That's very true. That's absolutely 100% possible. The system is only going to do what the system can do. But the concern is you don't do the screen. The person is working for you. Something goes missing. The person then finds out that person was in my house, had you brought him in my house and you should have known that he had a conviction. Why didn't you screen him? Why did you let him in? Then the civil suit hits.
And then, so with what, to your point at the beginning of this, there's certain levels of background checks. And I know with my cleaning company, before I got involved with Blue Skies, I didn't run the right one. I know I didn't after talking with you. I know I didn't. And so it's a matter of mitigating risk. So and we're not IBM, we're not Microsofts, we're not Facebooks. We're small business men and women that are looking at a background check on, give me the cheapest one and we'll be cool with that. Thank you very much. Have a good day, until something happens. But you can go 5 years with nothing happening.
Yeah.
You can go 10 years with nothing happening. Right. And then so you get complacent with that. But Uber said, oops, that's a $10 million problem. Now with a small company, that could be a $10,000 problem or a $50,000 problem. So getting the right one and mitigating that risk, you have a much better case, if you will, in court than you would otherwise. The ones I was running.
Yeah, that's really true. And honestly, my heart goes out also to small business because when I left the reason why I left the sheriff's department is because, real long story short, at 19 they told me I wasn't going to have kids, and in my 30s I had 2 children, so I didn't even know who they were. I mean, I was pulling doubles, and
you still don't know your kids or what?
I still have my kids. They're all grown now, but I stepped out and I thought, well, I'll get my PI license and I'll start my own business. And it didn't take me very long to realize I really like doing investigation and that kind of work, but running a business is so much more. And small business owners that have, when you start out, you're doing everything. You're chief bottle washer and accounts payable and website designer and everything. It's nuts. So, so when they can outsource things like recruiting, that's huge. But with that being said, it is all about risk mitigation. And, I hear 2 different things. Some people think background screens are going to cost $200, 150, 200 bucks. Probably for the price of a good dinner, you can get a really good background, So it's not as bad as it seems. But when you start doing the risk mitigation, and I understand, the dollar only goes so far and you can only afford to do what you can afford to do. But here's just a real quick example. I was a roundtable facilitator at a convention, and I was talking about there's certain things that you have to do. I won't get into it, but if you're not going to hire somebody, very specific things you have to do as far as sending them a letter, give them a chance to respond, all those kind of things. The laws aren't very specific as to how long you have to wait. It just says reasonable period of time. So as I was explaining this, a gentleman, I said, yes. He said, 3 days isn't long enough. I said, oh no. He goes, oh yeah, $30,000. Small business, little guy, $30,000 because he only waited 3 days instead of 5 to 10 days before telling them he was going to terminate him. So it is important, like just as you guys do things to bring in recruiters and all about recruiting and all that kind of thing, the firm that you choose, and this isn't a sales pitch necessarily, but it's great to work for a company you believe in. But that being said, you got to make sure they know what T's to cross and I's to dot if you're going to reduce risk. Right. So when it comes to, gosh, I checked them and they checked out, and yet look at they're a bad guy. When it goes to the law, when you go to court, you can say, hey, I did these searches and everything checked out. They hadn't got caught yet. I did my part. But you take that same scenario, especially when it's a sex offender, and they say, what, for how much dollars for less than a dinner, you could have found out. Now this happened, and what does that look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah.
So, and each individual company knows what they can do. As long as my job is to let everybody know what the different searches are, what's available, and then their job is to pick what works, what they can afford. And
Yeah.
so that's
Let me ask you something with and I don't know that there's a good answer for this. With your background in the sheriff end of it and your experience there, is there anything that you can recommend to anybody listening? What steps can there be? What can you do besides the background check? Because that's the fundamental thing you have to do, right? But that's not a guarantee. Nothing is. What can you do when Mr. Smith says or Mrs. Smith says Jane was the only one in the house, and I believe him as a business owner or whatever, but there's no way to prove it. How can you, what do you recommend? Do you recommend that there's a polygraph in place as part of your employment if you're accused? Do you recommend, or is that not something legal in all states? And then from there, the police come in usually and they investigate and they ask and they try to, what other things can we do as business owners when we're accused of that? When they accuse our employees, what do we do from that? What should we have in place?
I wish I had a good answer for you. It's just a tough one.
It is.
It sounds kind of crazy. I'm not in that arena anymore, and I've been out of it for a while. And technology has changed a lot since I've been out. But it seems to, I don't know, body cam seems to work for cops.
We thought about that.
I mean, what are you going to, you can tell when they turn it off, kind of a thing. So I don't know, but I don't have a good answer for you.
Okay.
It's just tough. I don't know how.
Yeah. I think like it's like, you've got to have something in place just so they're hesitant. Maybe it doesn't fix the problem if a crook comes in and they pass everything. But as long as it's, I think, a policy where it's threatening that we're going to take this to every extent. And I think what, a good idea to do as well, and we do it to prove your innocence. And we're going to do it by running a polygraph. We're going to put you through the ringer. We're basically going to put you through the ringer to find out if you did it or not for your own benefit. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's what we do. Let's get into two other things real quick. I want to know the pot thing. So apparently you can roll a big fat one anywhere you want in the country anymore. I know Denver, you can do it, and it doesn't have to be for medical purposes. You can do this, you can do that. And I drink beer and stuff like that, but you'd never test me for that. Right. Yeah. If marijuana is legal, you shouldn't be able to test for that. Maybe I'm wrong. I have no idea, but that's my question. And then how do you mix that with, medical marijuana and all those other things, right? On the job is one thing. I get that. If you go out to the car and some dude's smoking one up or pounding one, that's a problem. But what are they doing at night or on the weekends? What's this? Because you also do drug testing with part of your services.
Sure. Uh-huh. Yeah, marijuana is really interesting, and it's been kind of fascinating watching it evolve and all the laws evolving around it. So still on the federal level, it is against the law at the federal level, meaning that federal law says marijuana is still not good. Okay. So that being said, you can still have, in a lot of places, a drug-free workplace. They call it drug-free. And so marijuana can't be there. However, right now, there are 42 different states that permit some sort of usage of marijuana, okay, in one form or another, 42 out of our 50, okay? 33 states have very specific medical marijuana laws. And one of those is DC, by the way, just so you know. So it's been really interesting. On June,
you're not allowed to be a sex molester in DC yet, are you? That's still
Yeah,
they,
yeah, you can't do
but they
that.
like to hide it when it happens. I noticed that a lot.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of that going.
Hmm.
There's some serious investigation, from what I understand, going on around a certain person who had an untimely death. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, we're not
Go
going there.
on.
Right? So anyway, in Nevada, and I'm looking at some note here, just so I make sure that I give you fresh
Sure.
information. But Nevada is the first state to ban employers from refusing job applicants based on failed marijuana tests, and that happened. That was an article from June 12th of 2019. You can't ban them from working because they failed a marijuana test. So Fox Rothschild says the THC laws are rapidly developing, and employers should consult with counsel. And this is huge because it changes so fast, and that in the class action suits and things that are happening are huge. So
Yeah.
you want to talk to counsel to make sure that you're on solid ground before you take any adverse action against an employee who has failed or tested positive for marijuana. So,
So one thing that you said repeatedly is like talk to a lawyer or
yep,
seek legal counsel. I think especially for businesses like ours that are small businesses, if you did that, you'd be out of business because the bill rate of talking to a lawyer is so outstanding that you like it's cost prohibitive. You can't charge your customer enough to pass along that cost, which then leaves you to be the interpreter in so many cases. Or the way I'd view it is you just have to be conservative.
Yeah.
You
I
just
would,
can't take
yeah,
chances.
I hear what you're saying, but there are a lot of associations and there are a lot of independent self-help law uh, companies out there.
Okay.
There's a lot of
And there's like
paralegals,
subscriptions now too, like pay monthly, and you can
Legal
get this
Shield,
information. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's not a universal recommendation, right?
Right.
That's speaking on behalf of my company, our company I work with. But Legal Shield, those are subscriptions that you can reach out to. There are a lot of HR consultants that know these kind of things too. So and companies like or organizations like SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, even if you're a small business and maybe you are all the above, the HR representative and the home cleaning person and everything else.
You gotta be, right?
You got to be. You're all of it. So reaching out to those kind of either associations or subscription legal services such as Legal Shield, they can help you. And yes, there is a lot of research you can do online too. So I if you want to reach out to me, there's a couple of things I can provide for you, which would be like the EEOC background screening guidelines. That would be something that you'd want to read so you'd understand. It gives you scenarios like the person did this many years ago, and you have this kind of company. Is it okay not to hire them? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of help out there. But yeah, I do refer to legal because you really do need to have some legalese, someone who's up to date on that. More than
And there's a lot of things that you're talking about that you have to preface it with that, so you're not getting yourself in trouble, obviously.
exactly.
And I get that. And I mean, like you said too, though, Kate, I mean, there's a lot of things legislatively that are so fluid. What you read 2 weeks ago may not be true a month from now. So there's that's a difficult thing. We don't have time for that type of thing. So you do, to Dan's point, you have to be conservative, but you also have to spend an hour, a week or something to take a look at some of these. You can't just throw it aside and say, okay, I'm going to run the cheapest background check and I'm good. And then you go away. And there's a lot of things we're asking you too tonight that have nothing to do a lot with what your profession is with Universal. So I appreciate that. And one of them is this. I'm going to ask you another one. I was kind of shocked with this one. It's ban the bots, right?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to comment on it.
So this isn't necessarily background check stuff, but it is legal. There's some legal things going on about background checks is in essence what we're talking about. And background checks meaning, so it does relate to your industry, your line of work, where and the goofy thing with it, again, it's state by state, so it's hard to tell. And it's state by state, and it's a little bit gray here and a little bit gray there. You can put the words background check in not in the job description, but you can do it, during the interview. Whoa, not that state. You can't. You can say, I offer you the position subject to this. Well, why didn't you tell me I needed a background check? We've been doing this for a week now. And now you hire me with the subject. So talk a little bit about that if you can. And then I think this is one of the biggest things that small businesses, because it's number one, because it's state. So your state, obviously. But this is one of those where you can look it up pretty easily online and go, oh, man, I wish I would have known that before I had this $10,000 fine.
Yeah, I have to tell you, great question. And the reason why is it isn't even by state anymore.
It's not.
Oh no, it is by individual cities and provinces within a state.
Oh, nice.
Even better.
I was hoping you were going to say
crazy. Okay, so there's a website called the National Law Enforcement Project, and they actually update weekly on Ban the Box. Weekly. So you can actually go there and they have everything listed, and you can look up where you are, and it will tell you this week what the law is where you are sitting. It's crazy. But yeah, you really need to look at it, because everybody's interpreting different. Everybody has different rules, but the lawsuits are huge across the board. So and
the Ban the Boxes, and it's basically I think it was a bunch of our representatives in the government saying, there's people that have criminal background issues, and so don't throw them aside. Well, some states came around and said, I don't know that you should do that. And I knew the answer to this, but right now I don't. And if you don't, that's fine. Ban the Box came from, check this, if you have a felony. Is that kind of where this Ban the Box came from? So don't do that, ban that box, or what is it? Am I close?
You're really close. Actually, it's been kind of interesting watching it change through the years. So you used to be able to ask, have you ever been convicted of a felony or a misdemeanor? No, first it said, can you ever be convicted of a felony? And they said, that eliminates too many people just because so they had felony or misdemeanor. And then they said, no, you can't ask that. So then you had to change it to say, have you ever been convicted of a criminal offense? And then they said, no, that was discriminatory, because just because you have a criminal history doesn't mean that you can't be hired. So the Ban the Box is completely taking the question off of the application to take it off. Okay.
Yeah.
There's still places that you're allowed to ask, depending on how you word it. There's still places that you can. But then it went a step further to, not only can you not ask them, have they ever been convicted of a crime, but you have to wait till a certain period in the hiring process before you check to see if they're convicted of a crime, because it may deter your hiring them when it's a crime that really doesn't apply to the job classification they're being hired for. That's the mindset behind the whole thing. It's gotten very interesting and nothing standardized. So, I was gonna
say, is it just a bunch of lawyers behind it, like licking their chops? Like, all right, we got this
legislators, really lawyers.
So we have all kinds of wiggle room now.
It's sad. It's sad because so many things that happen for good reason. The heart behind it is right. It's like telephone though. By the time it gets to the end, it looks like a kidney, not a heart, so it's bad, so, the concept behind it was really good, but without any standardization, or it makes it really hard for employers to understand what they need to do when. So we are thankful for things like the National Law Enforcement Project, where you can hop on and see, in your area, what's required, what's not required, that kind of thing. So there's helps out there.
Okay. We're getting up on the hour here, Kate. Let's wrap it up with a couple things. One is there anything else that you want to say or talk about? And then we can get into, first of all, I want to say this. We are definitely integrated with universal background screening on our platform. If you're a client of ours, it's going to happen probably next week. I need to sign the agreement that you sent me. And then I talked to Career Plug, and things are going to happen next week. And by the way, we'll have E-Verify next week as well.
So the
that's
1-2
cool.
punch.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's all cool. Is there anything else that you want to say? And then I know whether you're a client or not, you have some sort of nice thing of value that you can give to our audience.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for letting me come on. It's the more information that we can get out to people, the safer small businesses are, and that makes my heart happy. So thank you very much. I appreciate the forum. As far as Universal is concerned, what we'd like to offer is anyone who mentions blue collar recruiting, whether you're integrated on any platform or not, or just starting out, we're going to waive any setup fees if you want it, if you're interested in our services. The other thing that's nice about our services is there's no monthly minimum. There's no like 2-year term commitment that you only pay as you go. So you set up your program when you need to use it, great. If you don't need to use it, great, which is huge for small business, because when I was back doing PI work, I had to pay a monthly fee whether I had a case or not. So it's nice that Universal has this option. So I'll put up my contact information at the end of this. Just make sure though, you guys, if you're interested and you go to Universal and you click on, you got to put in blue collar recruiting so that, it'll come to me and I can make sure that the fees are waived for you. And we will offer some discounts too. So
Cool.
that's that. Yeah, we'll help you guys out. As far as just background screening, I think I so understand what you said earlier, that everything is costs. I mean, it costs, and I get that, but it really bothers me when I get a call from a small business who calls me, who said no the first time, and then calls me back and then says, ouch, we need it now, kind of thing. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I actually was speaking to a small business. They had, okay, so like your company is going to offer our services to everybody in your system. I had another company that's doing the same, not an ATS system, it's a franchise, hands-on touch franchise. And the person called me and I went through some things. What you may not know is not only is every case in the county in that county and not shared, but if you search my married name and there's criminal history under my maiden name, you won't find it. They don't tie it together. It's by name. It's crazy. Yeah, absolutely.
That's nuts.
So when
my name, I'm gonna become John Shady O'Hara Day.
Well, it's funny because one of the stories I have a story. They had a person who had 863 AKAs, had 83 different offenses, all under different names. I mean, that's crazy. But that being said, when I was sharing this information, getting back to the point about the costs, when I shared it, the person I was speaking to said, what about AKAs? This package doesn't have AKAs. And I said, I know. I said, we can add that if you want, but we understand cost and some people don't want to go that far, but we certainly, because AKAs, if I have 2 names in 2 counties, I'm searching 4 counties. I mean, it's a deeper dive. So it costs more. Sure it does. So, and anyway, she said, I want them. And I said, okay, no problem. She said, do you know how much background screening I could have bought with $600,000 that I paid in a lawsuit because I didn't run an AKA and I didn't know about it? And I said, yeah, a lot.
Yeah, I've got an idea.
Yeah. So
my spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, my thing is, as long as you know what you get to pick from, and it isn't just, checking a box because someone thinks they're getting the whole nation. If your company is like accredited and making sure that you're getting taken care of, then that's good. So that's where I am. Okay.
And it's not like you're not charging a lot of money. I mean, you're just, I don't want anybody out there thinking it's, $75 or something like that. It's not like that. And there's choices, and our clients will have the choices of, I think we figured out about 3 different tiers, including drug testing. If you want a drug test, that's in there. which, that's a pretty big deal to have it all consolidated into one place like that. So when you click the word hire after we recruit for you, you can run an e-verify, you can run a background check, and we're soon to get on some tax credit stuff, hopefully by July 1st, which is really cool as well.
So I want to hit one more question here before we sign off, and it kind of goes to what you were just talking about, Kate, which is throw money aside, like cost not an object. What is there's so many different scales of information that you could get from background checks. What is the bare minimum that somebody in our audience? There's a lot of people that watch that aren't customers of ours yet. So to anybody that's out there that's maybe not using us for recruiting but needs background check help, what's like the bare bones that you'd say don't even mess around below this level because you're fooling yourself? Like, at least get this. Is there a cutoff point where you'd say don't mess around below this level, make sure you get at least this amount of info?
Yeah, I don't think no, we're talking blue collar at-risk people. I don't think I would ever do anything less than all the county, the Social Security trace, the 7-year county searches, and sex offender. That you're sending people into people's home with like I said, usually female home alone. I would say that would be like the minimum,
Cool.
But like I said, you're not talking. A lot of times people think backgrounds are like $150 or $100 or something. You can get like a pretty good legit background for significantly under that. Just saying, depending on how many.
What would that cost? Are we talking $10, $20, $40? What should somebody expect to pay to run a background check?
Yeah, you're probably looking around somewhere 7-year county with Social Security trace, somewhere around $25 to $30. If you start adding more databases, motor vehicle reports, you definitely want to run an MVR if they're driving on behalf of your company, because in some states you become liable even if it's their own car. Mm-hmm. That being said, you want to check with your insurance company because sometimes they'll run it for you.
And you had mentioned too, and I never knew this, that some, I don't know if it's counties or state, actually will charge all background check companies a certain dollar amount. And so one of the things I found out was that I think the last, or at least when we were talking about when I had my company years ago, was the background check company was a little bit misleading, and a lot misleading in some ways, but even misleading in what they were providing. But there's a lot more to it, but it doesn't have to break your back either on what you're paying. I mean, it just isn't. And it's, you talk about things. I mean, you should definitely want to make sure your clients are protected, if anything else.
Yeah, exactly. And regarding the cost, when we're talking about that, if you go to our website, you can actually, it'll describe all the different searches that are there. And then also we post on our public website, all the counties that charge is called an access fee. And it's not because we're screening firms. Anybody who walks in and says, I want to pull a county record, and I have to stay off my soapbox, because if we pay taxes for them to do the work, it's very challenging to pay them to have to see it. Just that.
The old gotcha.
Doesn't seem right, but they can. And most of the time I hear them say, when I ask somebody, because whenever anybody talks to me and wants to sign up and they want to talk about costs, what county are you in? I want to see if there's an access fee so you can consider that in your budget. So most of the time they say, never heard of that county, but there's significant ones there. It's about 22% of the counties nationwide. Yeah. That being said, we post it because we found, unfortunately, some of our competitors would have a really low package and then bump up fees. Like the county would charge 5, they charge 7, or the county wouldn't charge at all and they charge 2. Yeah. So they would just put in, does not count court access or administrative fees. And so they got away with it. But anyway.
The old administrative fee, yes.
The old admin fee. I'm realizing one thing here, which is I almost feel like, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Kate, but I feel like we could have a regular segment like every month where we just have questions for Kate and just like start collecting background check questions from the audience, because I feel like we could be on here for 3 hours and still be like, Oh, and like I got this story and these 3 more questions that popped into my head. This is fascinating stuff.
It is fascinating. And the articles that come out, I mean, I didn't even touch on like this much of the things that are happening out there. So if you ever want to have me back, I'll come back and.
We'll see you next week. Sounds good.
Anyway, so listen,
All right. All right, let's get it wrapped up. So that's it. Blue collar recruiting. We'll have the background check stuff for our clients set up. You can get a big discount from Kate if you're not a client of ours. And I'm sure Kate would answer a couple questions if you messaged her or got a hold of her. We'll post up some links to Kate after this.
Right.
Yeah, and that's it.
Okay, that sounds good. So do I need like, I have a PowerPoint slide that I can throw up that?
Yeah, throw it up right now for your, what do you got?
Okay. So let me see if I can do this. So are you seeing my screen?
Nope. I still see you. Hi.
I do that. I know there's a share, there it is, share screen. All right, let me pick the right one. Host, disable.
Oh yeah, you gotta, Sean's got work to do to make it go.
Kate will be the host. Yes. How about now?
Okay.
Boom.
There we go. Are you seeing it?
It's coming. I can feel it. It's about to happen.
Okay, let me try again.
It's just lagging, I think.
Share screen. Oh, there, I get a choice. Okay, I will do screen 2. And I will share, and I will make it big. Here.
There you go. There you go.
Boom. There's the info.
So get a hold of Kate. There's everything you need, and I'm sure Kate will be happy to answer some questions too.
Sure.
Perfect.
Are you seeing it there? Is it
yeah.
the whole thing? Okay, great.
Kate, can you email that over to Sean or me? We'll follow up with you right after this, and then we can actually like take that slide and put it right out on the Facebook page for everybody to grab there.
Perfect. Be happy to. And again, thank you for this time here and just being able to help people. It's cool. Thanks.
We gotta have you back on. Like, you just have so many more stories I can tell, and I feel like I've got some stories. We've had some things happen, and I had like 3 questions I didn't get a chance to ask, but I want to like tell my stories and then have you like totally like 2-up me with one that's like, oh yeah, that happened, but then here, this and that and that. So anyway, we got to do it again.
Very, very fun. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
So I know we're probably still live, and I don't know how to get back to Kate's the host.
Yep, you got to take her back.
I'm trying to do that.
All this technology stuff.
Crazy.
Let's do this more. I think she's actually got to do it, doesn't she? If she's the host,
possibly.
Kate, yeah. Try to make me the host again, and then I'll end the live.
Participants at the bottom and pull up the panelists, then you can make Blue Skies be the host.
Yeah, I have to exit full screen here. That's what's happening. Close it all down. Love it. Okay.
Technology is fun.
Yes, it is.
Zoom's behaved tonight. That was good.
Yeah, the Zoom Facebook.
Or Facebook. I don't know which.
Yeah, it's hard to know which one fails on you, but it's been working good lately.
Well, until you said that, because it won't open up. Here we go.
Something's happening.
I'm just going to quit Zoom. So let's see how that happens. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
This could be it. Or maybe not.
How crazy. It's not letting me.
Do you have anything, Kate, do you have anything that pops up that says more?
Oh, there it is. End meeting for all. Ready? Oh, wait. I got it. Here you go. I have 3 screens, so it's hiding on my 3rd screen.
Found it. Oh, yeah. You got the multi-monitor setup going. That's fancy.
Yeah.
I think we're still live.
We are. This is
All right.
this is the true entertainment. This is where the value's at.
Wait a minute. Oh, wait. I don't do that.
All right, you guys, you got it back? You guys have
Let
it?
me see. I think so.
Yep, I think Sean's no. Kate still
No, I
doesn't.
don't.
All
Kate
right,
still has it.
I'm hanging up. Bye, guys.
All right, see you, Kate.
All right.